Greetings everybody, Ben here from TheVirtualEconomist, and welcome to the top 10 worst TF2 Unusual effects. If you've watched all my videos, you might remember that I actually did make a video almost 5 months ago about my personal top 10 favorite unusual effects. Then, at almost that exact same time, fellow YouTuber Pyrofuzion made a video about his top 10 favorite unusual effects. What was awesome about these videos was that our lists were very similar, despite the fact that we did not work together on the videos at all. And I know what you're thinking, how'd that work? Anyway, I thought it would only be fitting if I invite Pyro to actually work with me this time, as I delve into not the best, but the worst effects in the game. Say hi, Pyro.
Hey guys.
Anyway, before we start the video, I want to go over a couple of disclaimers here so I don't get some mad comments saying like, oh, but Ben, you hated on my... Okay, so I think that in general, Valve tried to make all effects desirable. Well, most of them, but we'll see in a sec. Because most effects are ones that people might actually want, this list is not going to be just a giant list of complete cancer garbage pieces of crap. There's actually going to be some alright effects, and it really is just our opinion in the end. So don't get super mad at us if you really don't like the list. But I definitely do think it does encapsulate most of the pretty bad effects in the game, so it should be pretty good. Anyway guys, let's jump right on into the video. Pyro, take it away.
So starting the list off at number 10, we've chosen bubbling. Bubbling doesn't look too bad, but it's definitely not the best looking effect. It's pretty plain looking, and honestly it can be really hard to see if someone's actually wearing a bubbling unusual, because the effect is borderline invisible. Although I must admit it does look fairly nice if you pair it up with other effects, but on its own it definitely deserves to be on the list.
At number 9, we have electrostatic and power surge. I think that these effects were intended to be very good. However, I hope I'm not the only one to say that they feel very lackluster. The electricity circling your head is small and harder to notice than you might expect. Personally, I feel like the effects are just strict downgrades from effects like kilowatt and terawatt, and I feel like those really pull off the electricity look far better than electrostatic and power surge. On top of that, the effects always seem to have periodic bugs surrounding them, where the effect might orbit far too wide or too fast, or not even show up at all. Putting all this together, they wind up being very undesired and sell very poorly. At number 8, we have orbiting planets. Now, this is an effect that I really wanted to be good. I mean, when I first looked at the unusual effects and saw the name orbiting planets, I got really excited. I mean, to me, what could be cooler than awesome looking planets orbiting around your head? However, once I saw the effect in game, I could see why it sold for so cheap. The planets are small, not very colorful, and quite honestly, impossible to see at times. I think that if the effect had space and small stars surrounding the planets like Nebula has, I think that it could be one of the best effects in the game. As it stands, however, the effect is just very underwhelming and not eye-catching at all.
Okay, so for number 7, we chose dead presidents. A lot of people actually like this effect because there's money flying around, but I find it to be pretty boring. It doesn't really look very noticeable from a distance. If you're up close, you can see it's not too bad looking, but if you're far away, then you can barely see it.
At number 6 is Aces High. This is an effect that I think the majority of traders really do dislike. Like dead presidents, I think that a lot of this hate really comes from the fact that it is a very stereotypically bad 3rd gen effect, and for a lot of traders, 3rd gen really just equals bad. Personally, I don't mind the effect too much, especially since the cards change in a team spirit color depending on what team you're on. However, at the end of the day, I would still rather have my hat have pretty much any other effect than Aces. At number 5, we have Ancient Codex and Galactic Codex. When I first saw the full arsenal of invasion effects, I really didn't think that any of them were that great, except for of course Nebula and Abduction. However, the Hat Protectors and Atomics have definitely grown on me, leaving the codexes in the dust. These effects seem pretty cool in theory, but wind up being very small and unnoticeable. Most people want something flashy for their unusual effect, and the codexes really just don't give that to you. I like the orange of the Ancient Codex a little bit more since it stands out more than the green, but at the end of the day I think that most people will steer clear of these effects.
Coming in at number 4, we have EERIE orbiting fire. This effect is just purple smoke flying around the head. It doesn't look very interesting, and I hardly ever see anyone wearing unusuals with this effect, which is either because people don't like wearing it, or because I can't actually see the effect. I actually love the regular orbiting fire, but this purple fire is kind of a letdown. If Valve added a green orbiting fire effect, I think that would actually look really cool. But yeah, EERIE orbiting fire definitely deserves to be on the list.
At number 3, we have Memory Leak and Overclocked. These effects suffer from an almost identical fate as that suffered by the codexes. They are very small effects and are quite hard to notice in-game. The squares are just ugly to a lot of people and are not desirable at all. On top of that, they appear to be strict downgrades to effects like sulfurous and phosphorus, which can actually be very flashy compared to the raw looking pixels of Overclocked. Personally, I like Memory Leak much more since it can look pretty good with a nice green set. However, it is definitely much more of an accent as the effect is not going to stand out one bit. And again, I definitely think that putting phosphorus on that set would make it look 1,000 times better.
For the number 2 position, we have chosen Nuts and Bolts. You guys all knew this would be somewhere near the top of the list. The effect just looks bad in general. These SFMs actually do a pretty good job at showing off the effect, but if you're in a dark location, then Nuts and Bolts is pretty much invisible. Not to mention that Nuts and Bolts has that stigma of cancer, which is another reason why it's so high on the list. And finally, in the first place is Massed Flies. This effect is by far the worst looking effect in the whole game. It just looks really horrible with the flies circling your hat. I honestly have no idea who would even want to wear a hat with flies. It does look pretty bad. On the bright side, the radius of the effect is actually pretty big, but everything about the effect just looks gross.
And there you have it, our top 10 least favorite unusual effects. If you enjoy my videos, especially Keys to Riches, I would definitely recommend checking out Pyro's channel. His trading series Nothing to Something is seriously amazing, and he shows trading from the earliest scrap banking up to high tier unusuals. I definitely recommend checking him out. He also made the SFMs for the unusuals in this video, which I have to say it looked pretty darn amazing. So definitely thank you, Pyro, for taking your time out of your day and being on my channel.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Anyway guys, this is going to be the end of the video here, but definitely if you enjoyed the video, leave it a like and comment below what are your top 10 worst unusual effects. I'm definitely interested to hear what you guys think and what effects you agreed or disagreed with that we had in our list. And thanks for watching.